Hey everyone, this is Bob Kovacs here at Wirefly with a review of a new phone that's really not such a new phone. This is the Nexus S 4G. It's on Sprint, but if you look at the phone, it doesn't really indicate anywhere on it that it is a Sprint phone. And in fact, physically, it appears to be identical to the Nexus S that came out 6 months ago for T-Mobile. In fact, if you look at these two phones, there's really no way to tell them apart until you take the back covers off. And the Nexus S for T-Mobile has got a T-Mobile SIM card in it, and the Nexus S for Sprint does not use a SIM card, of course. Sprint doesn't use SIM cards. So really, that's the only way to tell them apart. And if you look at both of these phones, you'll see there is no external slot for a micro SD card for additional memory. So each of these phones comes with a 16 gig complement of internal storage for your files, and that's the only memory that you're going to get for your files. Now 16 gig, fortunately, is a nice amount of storage space. But that is the first thing that I want to tell you about the Nexus S 4G for Sprint, is that it has 16 gig of internal storage and no available external memory slot. In fact, if you look around the phone, there's very few controls. This is the on-off switch over here, and it also puts the phone to sleep. And when you touch it, when the phone is active, here's what happens. I love that little collapse down it does, just like an old-fashioned CRT screen from 20 years ago. And the only other control is a volume up-down rocker. The bottom has a standard 3.5 millimeter audio jack and the normal micro USB port for syncing and for charging the phone. But basically, it's all done in a very elegant black. And it's very sleek too. And notice the curve. There's a slight curve. Now here is another phone. This is one of the Galaxy S series of phones. This is the Samsung Galaxy S 4G on T-Mobile, relatively new. It's also slim and sleek, but notice that it's straight versus the curvature of the Nexus S 4G. So that's very cool. It's very black, very stylish. So let's talk a little bit more now about the Nexus S 4G. It has the Super AMOLED screen of the Galaxy S class of phones on Samsung. It's a 4-inch Super AMOLED screen with a resolution of 480 by 800 pixels. It's absolutely a beautiful screen. I love the 4-inch AMOLED screen. Perhaps the best screen in all of cell phonedom out there, and that includes the screen on the Apple iPhone, which has higher resolution but just doesn't have the punch of the Super AMOLED screens. Okay, now some of the other specifications on the Nexus S 4G. It's got a 1 gigahertz processor, 512 megabytes of processor RAM. It also has a graphics processor unit by Samsung that does a wonderful job at making anything that moves on the screen look nice and smooth, as you can see from this active background we have going there, that live background. I mentioned that this is a 4G phone. It uses Sprint's 4G WiMAX high-speed network. Unfortunately, we don't get 4G WiMAX here at the office, at least not down here in the studio area, so I can't give you a demo of the speeds. I tried testing the speed upstairs at my desk, could only get 3G, but I'll be working on this to see if I can get some 4G speeds over the weekend. Now, the 3G, of course, is Sprint's CDMA EVDO network. One of the features of the Nexus S, it was the first cell phone to come out with what they call near-field communications. So at some point in the future, if stores or other locations have near-field communications activated, all you need to do is wave your phone in the vicinity of that and you can pay for something. So if you go shopping at a store with NFC, you can wave your phone by the NFC sensor and the charges presumably will get billed to your phone account or something like that. So it promises a future to make it easier to pay for things, although there's not much out there that takes advantage of that. The camera on the Nexus S is a 5 megapixel camera with a single LED flash, and it does 480p DVD quality video. It does not do 720p HD video. I've got a video clip coming up that I shot with the Nexus S, and you'll take a look at it then. There's also a front camera. The front camera is a VGA quality front camera. That means it's 640 by 480, and we'll demo that as well. It has a 1500 milliamp hour battery under the cover. And let's go ahead and talk more about some of the things that it does. Of course, it has full access to the Android market. And speaking of Android, the Nexus S 4G comes with Android 2.3.4. This is the latest version of Android 2.3.4. So very nice. And let's go back and take a look at what the camera can do. Okay, I have the camera on the front-facing camera. That's me. Hi, everyone. Hi. Yeah, you can see me. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and switch this to the rear camera. Very easy to do, just like that. And let's take our goofy fake credit card. And if you want to use the numbers off this card, just be sure you tell them that your name is your name here. And once you touch the camera icon here, you'll see the focus is kind of soft. It'll focus up and make everything nice and sharp and take a picture. So very nice, and you can touch that to review the picture that you just took. So very easy to use the camera, and of course you switch between the still image camera to the video right here like that, and now it's got the video icon. Easy to do effects and so forth. Just touch the settings button right there. Let's take it back to stills, touch the setting buttons, and you can scroll through the effects. You can adjust your exposure. You can do a variety of things here. So we'll go ahead and get out of that. Okay, so that's a quick look at how the camera functions on the Google Nexus S 4G for Sprint, made by Samsung. Quite a mouthful. Now I want to take a look at some of the pictures I took. I set up a little still life on my desk, and I thought the camera did an excellent job of focus, but the picture looks just kind of washed out and not much color. So you can see that when I zoom in, there's a very sharp focus, but again, it remains washed out. I took it outside, and in the daylight, it's an overcast day outside, I took a picture of some of last year's holly berries, and those looked really good. I love the macro capability on this, where the foreground is very sharp, but the background is very out of focus. That's a classy technique that makes the foreground really stand out and isolates the foreground in an appealing kind of way. Okay, I also shot a little bit of video with this outside, so let's take a look at that now. This is video from the new Nexus S 4G for Sprint. It's a cool and slightly drizzly day today, so the sky is very overcast. And you can see as I pan the camera around that it irises down for the sky and opens back up again when we get something in the shot. That's the Wirefly building right there. As I said, it's an overcast day. The screen is very easy to see. The Super AMOLED screen on the Nexus S 4G is very easy to see on this overcast day, and visualize what I'm pointing at. You get some very pleasant greens here in the shot. Very nice. And I thought that the video looked okay, nothing special. The audio was pretty good. I like the fact that the camera's iris control responded very quickly to adjust the iris so that the brights were toned down and the less bright objects were brought up. But overall, I wasn't knocked out by the video from that. Keep in mind that this is a cell phone, not a dedicated video camera. So that's what the camera looked like. Now let's go ahead and run the typical benchmark tests that I like to do. I like to run Quadrant, so I'm going to go ahead and run it. I'm going to come back once Quadrant is completed and we'll pick it up then. This is the last of the graphics tests in Quadrant, and it will ask me if I want to get the score, and of course I want to get the score. And you can just see the tiny print there. It says that the quadrant score is 1,692. That's 1692. That is a very good score on quadrant. Now, I've seen quadrant scores well over 2,000, so you could say that, you know, around 1,700 is no great shakes. And you would be right. However, for a single processor cell phone, that is an excellent score, almost as good as they get. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to run my other benchmark test that I like to run, which is SmartBench 2011. So I'm going to go ahead and run SmartBench, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come back once it's ready to wrap up. This is the last of the graphics tests that is part of SmartBench 2011. Now it's going to ask me if I want to get the results, and yes, of course I want to get the results. The problem is with SmartBench is that it takes a while to deliver the results. And there they are. Now SmartBench gives you two numbers. One number is the productivity index and the other number is the games index. For productivity, the Nexus S4G got 953. Not really all that special a score, but for the games index, it got 2,489, so nearly 2,500 for the games index. And that is a function of the graphics processor that's in all of the Galaxy S phones from Samsung, including the Nexus S4G. So the graphics processor does such a good job with graphics. The graphics score on this phone is 2.5 times, nearly 3 times what its productivity score is. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you play games, if you do visual things on the Nexus S4G, they are going to work very smoothly. And handling this phone, it works just as smooth as silk. Now, if you do any number crunching kind of applications, according to this number, they're not going to run so well. However, my experience is that SmartBench is just not all that optimized for Android 2.3. And quite possibly, since this is running Android 2.3.4, that just has not, that SmartBench 2011 has not been optimized for Android 2.3.4. One other thing that I loaded on this phone, and I wanted to show you that it has this cool wraparound thing going on with the applications in the app tray. And notice how smooth it scrolls. I mean, this is just really beautifully smooth. So the Nexus S is one of the few Android phones out there that can handle Netflix. So I want to go ahead and show you what Netflix looks like on the Nexus S, because with the Super AMOLED display, it really is nice. And I was watching a movie earlier called Under Still Waters, some sort of drama that's maybe a little overly dramatic. So I'm going to go ahead and put it down and show you what a movie from Netflix looks like. Of course, I'm connected with the Wi-Fi here at Wirefly. It's hard to say. I said Wi-Fi and all of a sudden I wanted to say Wirefly, and it was hard to come up with that. Hey, that's a Porsche Cayenne. And here's the babe in the film. And as you can see, it does a pretty respectable job once it gets loaded of presenting a movie from Netflix. This is one of Netflix's streaming movies. So we're all done with that for now. And of course, it makes the sound. It works as a phone as well. I've actually made a phone call on this phone. I would say the phone call quality is average. There was good volume. And the person at the other end said that I had good volume. So I would say the phone call quality was average. And one other thing that I want to mention about the Nexus S4G for Sprint is that Sprint and Google have a partnership going on with the Google Voice application. And so the Nexus S4G has a very active participation with Google Voice. So if you're a user of Google Voice, you might want to think about the Nexus S4G to make your life a little bit easier. So anyway, that is a review of the Nexus S4G on the Sprint network. This is a pure Google phone. As we looked through it, there were no overlays of any manufacturer, operator, or user interface. This is how Google thinks Android should appear. So this is Bob Kovacs here at Wirefly. Thanks for watching.